The 12th season of Consider This is brought to you in part by From the Top, a national program showcasing the musical talents of young people. From the Top can be heard on KVNO Classical 90.7 each Saturday at 6 p.m.
Consider This, a program of issues and information behind today's news. Once again, from the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha, here is your host, Kathy Wyatt.
In need of legal assistance, but don't think you can afford it? Help may be just a phone call away. Hi everyone, I'm Kathy Wyatt. Welcome to this week's edition of Consider This. Our topic, Legal Aid of Nebraska. Here to join us to talk more about it are Dave Pantos. Dave is the program's executive director. Stephen Tuig, a private practice attorney from Dodge County, and Willie Watson, a former client who lives right here in Omaha. Welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Having us.
You bet. Dave, we're going to start off with you. Tell us, what is Legal Aid of Nebraska?
Kathy, Legal Aid of Nebraska is a statewide nonprofit law firm that helps low-income and elderly people with their legal problems in civil legal matters. And those include evictions, bankruptcies, divorces, child custody, unemployment, public benefits like Social Security and Medicaid, a wide range of legal problems that low-income people are facing that are keeping them from getting back into a situation of being self-sufficient. We help them, we go into court, we give advice, we write legal briefs, we do all sorts of work to help that individual or that family resolve a legal problem or problems that are getting in the way of them taking care of themselves one way or another.
And Dave, tell us, what is Legal Aid of Nebraska's definition of low income?
Well, these guidelines are set by the federal government. Every year the federal government says what the poverty level is, and we help folks that are at 125% of the poverty level or less. Now we make some exceptions. We have an elder access line that provides free advice and brief service to anyone over the age of 60. Now Warren Buffett's never called us, but he could and we would help him. So there's no income limit for folks who are over 60. For folks who are not, it's that 125% of the poverty level. So for example, for an individual that might be about $13,000 a year. For a family of four, that's about $27,000 a year.
Okay, and I want to go back to something you said, that regardless of your income, if you are over the age of 60, someone can call to inquire about your services. What types of questions are you getting generally, or concerns from that population 60 and over?
Wow, well, there are some particular concerns that have to do with housing. Someone who has a bad debt, they're being aggressively pursued by a creditor, and their home is at risk, and we will help that individual with that bad debt and find out what their legal options are to maybe take care of that bad debt so they don't have to lose their home, lose their homestead even. That's a big issue. Wills, end-of-life issues. We also see issues relating to elder abuse, and we give advice on those matters. And then there's Medicaid, medical insurance, and some other income issues, eligibility for public benefits, that kind of thing. So it's a wide range of legal issues that are particular to elder Nebraskans. And I think the thing to keep in mind, and why this is so important, is the proportion of elderly people in Nebraska is growing. There are more and more elderly people, especially in rural Nebraska, and we provide services to elderly people throughout the state, not just in Omaha, but throughout the state. And they can access that through our toll-free hotline, which I know you're going to show the viewers soon.
Absolutely. And you talked about this being a statewide program. Very, very important. In fact, we have a graphic of a map showing all the locations that you have across the state. If you could talk to us about those specific areas.
Thanks, Kathy. Now, while we do encourage folks who are new callers to our services to call our toll-free numbers, we do have offices conveniently located throughout the state. We're as far west as Scottsbluff, we're in North Platte, we're in Grand Island, we're up in Norfolk, we're in Lincoln, Omaha, and Bancroft. So we really do try to cover most of the state geographically. And for areas that we're not specifically located in, we contract with private attorneys who agree to take cases at a low cost basis that we pay for. The client never has to pay, but we pay for it out of our funding. And those attorneys, again, are taking these cases at reduced cost, probably 1/2 to 1/3 of the normal hourly rate they would charge, and they will take cases for us. So we have private attorneys in Dodge County, but also as far away as Cherry County and in other parts of the state where our offices are not located.
Okay, and Stephen, you are one of those attorneys.
I am.
Talk to us about your role with the organization.
Essentially what happens is Legal Aid will give me a call and they'll say a short description of what the client needs and whether I'm interested in taking it or not. So far over the last 6 years I've built a pretty good relationship with them that I'll take pretty much whatever they throw my way, because these people, the best thing about legal aid for a private attorney is that the client is screened, and they're screened so that the most abused individuals or the people that really need the help most desperately will filter through as quickly as possible. Not to say that anybody won't filter through, but the ones that are in desperate need of overnight stuff, things, protection order hearings, or even having to have it filed, or they need to get out of the house right away and they need to get away from their husband, or I'm generalizing their husband, but generally the people who are most in need will have priority, and he can attest to that, I believe. Dave will say that those people with priority are in danger, basically, and if I can help them, that's what I do. You get a pretty good feeling as a private attorney doing these things for these individuals because they are at that need. They've already been pre-screened. You know that it's not just someone who's making up something. What I would do then is they send me the information, I meet with the client, and we start the process for them. It's really very simple, but I do know that when they come in the door, they're already pre-screened, they're already in desperate need of help, and they don't have the financial resources for that help. And just because they're in a smaller community like Fremont or even Washington County or Saunders County, and I think I've even gone to Colfax and Butler County as well, that they are going to get some representation because they're in that desperate need of it.
Okay, and Stephen, for those attorneys that are watching who are not part of this network, talk to us about how you connected with them. Talk about that process in the event that someone watching would be interested in joining the team.
At that time, I think they actually cold called me and said, I have an individual that would you help with? And I said, well, I'm not so sure. And they said, well, we can pay you not much, but we can pay you something, which was fine. And I figured, what the heck, the Bar Association not requires, but suggests that attorneys do give a lot of pro bono hours out if they can, in support of the community and support of the Bar Association standing to try to do that pro bono work. And so this is a kind of a partial way to do that, but with the same token, you're getting individuals that are desperately in need. And with doing that, it is a little selfish on my part because you get a good feeling when you help out those people who are in that desperate situations. I've seen individuals who are beaten, abused, emotionally abused. Just someone, I've done probably, I think, 60 cases for legal aid, and it ranges everywhere from just the constant verbal abuse of, gee, you're worth nothing, you're useless, to the severe cases where children are abused, or the wife is abused, or I have had a couple individuals where it has been the male, so I'm generalizing there, but the individuals, when they come to you, you get a good feeling at the end of it because they need out because of the dangerous situation. And so when the other attorneys see this program, I think they could probably call up and probably get pre-screened with legal aid to make sure that, one, they probably have the qualifications to competently handle the clients that are coming their way, because it is high intensity dealing with that. The one thing I would tell the private attorneys out there, if they're thinking about taking these types of cases, is that not only are they pre-qualified, they're pre-screened, you do get paid something, but the process that you go through is that legal aid won't let you do the case the way you want. Now you have to report to them to let them know what you're doing to make sure that everything is copacetic, but for the most part, there's not a whole lot of overbearing control over what you're doing. So you can continue to help the client and feel good about going forward as though they're your client and you have that relationship with the client. But another good thing about it is that these cases they're good cases because And what I mean, well, the other attorneys out there, when they hear this, they're going to say, well, it's a good case because there's good facts. You have an individual who's been abused and who's in a severe situation, and they have all these facts that really stack up against the other party. So nobody wants to take a case they're going to lose, but when you get this type of case, it's usually really good cases because you can go in, you know you've got a good chance of just hammering home a good win and helping that client get away.
Okay, and Willie, you and your wife, former clients of
Yes.
Legal Aid of Nebraska. Is Stephen speaking the truth to us here about their programs and
Well,
services?
me for one, I really do appreciate what they do because I was in a dire situation. You know, I was being improperly evicted after being thrown down a set of stairs, which I got injured in, and they stepped in and saved the day for me. The place where I live. You know, I had a disagreement with the management there, and they took it to a whole nother level. You know, they got angry, and once they got angry, then they used their position of power to try to just kind of put me and my family in the streets. And these guys came along and they saved the day for me. You know, it was a very traumatic situation for me because I am disabled, my wife is disabled, and you know, we just didn't have anywhere else to turn.
And Willie, can I ask, how did you find out about Legal Aid of Nebraska? Kind of walk us through this process.
Well, there's an organization called Fair Housing, you know, and we contacted them, and they in turn recommended that we contact Legal Aid to try to assist us in this matter. They felt that it was a good case, that I had a good case, and as it turned out, you know, we did win the case, you know. They did win the case for me, I should say. And I'm deeply appreciative of that.
So the process itself, not really that difficult for you, not that frustrating. You picked up the phone, you called, and they took the ball and worked as a team with you and your wife, and you were able to accomplish what it was that you needed to accomplish.
Yeah, that is true. It's kind of like the problems went away when they got involved.
Okay, very good. And Dave, how many clients are you serving at this time across the state of Nebraska?
Wow, that's it's going to be a bigger number than you expect because we are seeing, I think every day, I'll just start with this. Every day we get about anywhere between 60 and 80 folks who call us through any of our access lines, Elder, the regular one, the Native American hotline, our farm ranch hotline, with all sorts of legal problems. So at any given time, we'll have thousands of open cases statewide, thousands. And I think you've got this on a graphic, but last year we closed 10,800 cases. And that's ranging from advice to an individual caller to a full-on litigation trial involving numerous medical and other experts. We do the whole thing, you know, and I think that's part of the great thing about Legal Aid is our staff. These are highly trained individuals who are experts in both the area of law they practice, but just in poverty law generally. And they know the best way to get the problem solved, because in a sense, what we are is problem solvers. Someone comes to us like Willie or you know, any number of the clients that Steve has helped or anyone else, they don't say to us, well, what I need to do is to you know, file this Chapter 13 and have a 341 hearing, da-da-da-da-da-da. They don't give us the strategy. They say, this is my problem. I have these creditors calling me day and night, and they won't leave me alone, and I don't know what's going on. Can you help me? And then we decide, okay, here's the problem that's being presented to me as the attorney. Here's the solution. File in court, call the creditors, send them a letter, whatever, you know, call an agency, let the landlord know that they're being abusive, or you know, yeah, litigate and go into court and win the case. There's all these different solutions that are out there, so that's what we are problem solvers.
And how many problem solvers like Stephen do you have across the state of Nebraska? How many private practice attorneys do you actually have working in cooperation with legal aid?
I think if you look at the whole roster, there are about 150. Now, there are very few who have done as many cases as Stephen. I mean, he's one of our gold medal winners in terms of private attorney involvement. But we have a lot of other attorneys who've taken on numerous cases, so there are about 150, and again, they are spread out throughout the state. Within the firm, we have almost 40 attorneys in those different offices that we talked about earlier who directly handle cases in the courts that are nearby those offices. And we also have paralegals and other great support staff who are working day in and day out on those cases.
Okay, and considering the workload, and you mentioned the aging population earlier, you talked, 150 private practice attorneys like Stephen. What would be the ideal magic number? Are you where you need to be from a staffing standpoint, or could you use more assistance based on the number of calls that you're receiving?
That's a really important question, especially so today. We are facing an economic crisis, as you know. The number of callers and clients that we're getting has increased greatly. From 07 to 08, a 15% increase. Year to date, 09, a 30% increase versus the same time last year. It is absolutely essential that anyone who can support legal aid does so. The stats that we've seen, nearly 1/5 of the population of Nebraska is eligible for our services. Other stats show that every low-income people who fits in that criteria has a legal problem at least once every year or once every 2 years. Based on that information, we are only able to help about 15% of the folks that have a legal need. That means there are 85% of the people who are eligible for our services who are not getting their legal needs met. And that's a real problem. And you see it because you hear these reports, it was even on CNN, the New York Times, Chief Justice Heavican mentioned it in his State of the Courts address in January. There are more and more people who are going to court without an attorney. They're unrepresented, and frankly, they don't know what they're doing. And I'm sure Willie could comment on this now. If he and his wife had to go forward into court against this landlord on their own, they wouldn't know what to do.
I would have lost the case.
Exactly, and that's the story for a lot of folks right now. That because we have limited resources, there are only so many folks to help them. So I think it's absolutely essential for whether it's other attorneys who want to take on cases like Steve. Now again, we only have so much funding to pay for private attorneys, and it's certainly not mandatory to take on cases for free in the state. So what we hope for is for folks who maybe believe in our mission to help folks like Willie and others with their legal problems to donate. If we can build our resources up, we can hire more staff. With more staff, we can help more folks. It's really a very simple equation.
Well, absolutely, and based on this program alone, you were talking about the number of calls you receive earlier. That number obviously is going to go up after this
Absolutely.
program airs, and so we really want to make sure we're doing what we can to put that number of attorneys and some other assistants up as well, so that you can try to meet the demand.
Absolutely.
Stephen, I want to go back to when you agreed to help Legal Aid of Nebraska. I think we all have this, not all of us, but some of us have this general stigma associated with attorneys that you're just out to make as much money as you can and really fight those big battles and all the rest. And I'm hearing your story, and that's not at all what you're telling us.
I always joke everybody always hates attorneys till they need one. Then all of a sudden it's a different story. But when I first got out, I didn't quite, and I came from, I guess I would say, the perfect family. My parents were perfect in every way, shape, and form, I would say. But I've seen over the years the types of things that happen with interpersonal skills between family relationships, and it would astound you some of the abuse that individuals have sustained. And it's, once you see that a couple times, you don't want them to have to go through it again. And usually by the time they've contacted Nebraska Legal Aid, they've finally started to break that cycle of abuse where they are willing to take the next step. When a mother has to or again, generalizing to mothers, but when a person has to pick up their children to get them away from an abusive situation or a dangerous situation and literally move out of the house and go to a safe house or a crisis center or something of that nature, that they have to remove themselves from the situation, they've taken that good step of saying, you know what, I'm going to break this cycle of abuse, I'm not going to go back to it, and as being an attorney, if you can help them then take that lunge forward and be out of it, makes you feel pretty good.
Well, and hopefully people that are watching will hear that message, and we do want to apologize for people who are watching. There is some construction going on nearby today, so if
They're
that
not bleeping out what he said.
Right, and we've never had to bleep, so we're hoping that with an attorney especially, we won't have to do that today. But there is some construction going on, so bear with us, and we appreciate you doing that. Willie, when you went to make your initial phone call to legal aid, again, just to give our viewers an idea of who is going to be picking up that phone, tell us about just everything from the mannerism to the response that you received. I really want to encourage people not to, just because this is a quote complimentary or free service for them, to have them thinking, oh, I'm probably not going to get the help I need. I mean, not true at all, correct?
Not true. Yes. It was, a totally, pleasant experience as far as, dealing with legal aid. I mean, I felt a certain sense of relief once they took the case, because I really didn't know where I was going to go, because I couldn't afford to move at the time, it was, one of those situations where I was not prepared to do that, and if they hadn't stepped in and did what they did for me, kind of right the injustice that was going on, I don't know what I would have done, to be perfectly honest. I have a 9-year-old at home that is in school, and I was near the school that I live in. I mean, that she goes to. It's like 3 blocks away. And to snatch her out of school in the middle of the year, because that's what I probably would have had to do if I would have had to have moved, would have been a big inconvenience for us. Okay. Financially, I was not prepared to do that at that time. So, I was looking at being homeless.
And they were able to help.
They were able to help, and solve that problem, because it was a total injustice of what's going on.
Yeah, Stephen, this is really serious, and you've alluded to several instances. This is serious stuff we're talking about. Yeah. These are people who are in a very difficult circumstance with very limited means, with big hearts, obviously, and you're wanting to do the right thing. Sure. You've handled a lot of cases, as David said. I mean, how do you go in day after day to meet these challenges? I know there are victories, but what really does keep you going with this?
That's when it's hard to explain. I mean, I will never pretend to understand what they're going through, and I don't pretend to. I can try to help them move forward with life, but it's their life. And if they're in that dangerous situation, if I can help, I need to. As far as the other aspects of it go, one of the very first cases I ever had for legal aid actually turned into a trial, which was great. It was fun, and I shouldn't say that. It was fun for me. It wasn't fun for the clients, because that's, as a litigator, you want to go to court. Right. But that client is still a client of mine today. As a matter of fact, I still have her as a client and help her out. She had a personal injury case, and so I still have that relationship with her. And have that relationship with pretty much all my clients. The ones that moved out of state obviously aren't as close, but it's all more about the feel-good thing. And I hate to say it that way, because it makes me sound kind of selfish, in that I feel good when I help them help themselves.
When you first got into law, were you thinking this was the path that you were going to take?
Not in a million years.
Yeah.
It was. I didn't know what I was getting into when I went to law school.
But this not where you thought you were going to wind up?
No, it's not where I thought I'd be, but I can tell you that being a lawyer is the best job I've ever had, and it's the best thing that ever could have happened to me.
Okay. Now, Dave, for those people who are watching who don't necessarily qualify for your programs and services, residents of Nebraska, how is it that they benefit by Legal Aid of Nebraska being around?
Sure. There are a lot of ways that folks benefit, and I'll just go through a few of them. First of all, we do a lot to make sure that there is great legal information on our website. So whether you're a client of ours or not, you can go to our website and access any number of our handbooks about consumer law, landlord-tenant, divorce, bankruptcy, and get a lot of the information you need as to whether or not you even need a lawyer and what your rights are. So we do that, and that's a free service for everyone. You just need to go to our website, which is legalaidofnebraska.com, and get that information. Second of all, we are an economic engine for the state. Here at UNO, there's a professor who does an economic impact analysis of our work, and he has determined that for every dollar of state funds that are invested in legal aid, anywhere between $4 and $5 are returned to the state economy. And how does that work? Well, we're helping folks get their public benefits from the federal government. That brings money into the state. If we help an elderly person stay in their homestead and not get kicked out and end up on public housing, that saves money for the state. That brings more money to the state. And there are a lot of other areas. So we benefit the folks who don't qualify for our services that way as well. And it's, the folks that we represent are not just, distinct individuals outside of the mainstream. These are friends, families, and neighbors of other folks within Nebraska. I mean, I said 1/5 of the population qualifies. I mean, for every person that's out there, everyone else probably knows or is related to or is friends with, goes to church with, someone who has been helped by legal aid or represented by legal aid. So there's this multiplier effect. For every person we help, that's someone who's more self-sufficient and if we're helping them get out of a situation and back into work or stay in their homes or be able to pay taxes because they're working again, that benefits the state as well. And there's also something really key, I think, that gets to the heart of, I think, the democratic ideal, which is access to the courts. We are a nation of laws, and it's the rule of law that really makes things work. It's what makes us different than a totalitarian dictatorship country or something else. It's because you can, if you have a dispute, if you have a civil dispute with someone else or an entity or an organization, you can get your dispute resolved in court.
Through you. And I don't mean to interrupt you, but I want to get these graphics up for the end of the program to make sure that people know where they're going, websites and so forth. So if we could just hold that thought for a second. Really important we get this up for folks who've been watching today. Statewide access line, you have the number there. And then the rural response hotline, 800-464-0258. We have another one, I believe. And then you have the Native American hotline and the Elder Access line. Gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. We've gained a lot of information. Thanks to those of you at home for watching. We will see you next week.
More information and program archives can be found at untv.unomaha.edu. If you'd like to share your comments about this show, call UNO TV at 402-554-2516 during regular business hours.
The 12th season of Consider This is brought to you in part by From the Top, a national program showcasing the musical talents of young people. From the Top can be heard on KVNO Classical 90.7 each Saturday at 6 p.m.